morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now in our 21st episode of 2026. I hope everybody enjoyed Fiber Connect 2026 in Orlando last week. We had record attendance for the sixth straight year in a row. And personally, I really enjoyed Alan Isfan's AI pre-conference workshop on Sunday. And it was great, at the end of the week, to end our week with our AI and Next Gen Technology Summit on Wednesday with my favorite quantum physicist, Dr. Michio Kaku. I actually had the opportunity to spend some time with him on Tuesday evening discussing string theory. So what a thrill for me to discuss string theory with the founder of string theory. I'll also say I was really impressed at how well our industry cleans up, as you guys looked amazing in your tuxedos and formal dresses at FBA's 25th anniversary gala. I'm in DC today, and even though Congress is not in session, there's still a lot going on. NTI has approved 54 of 56 BEAD final proposals. The two states left are California and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker sent a letter to Secretary Lutnick asking NTI to approve their final proposals and to release their funding to the state. We still have 52 states and territories have signed their BEAD agreements with NTI. And I was with NTI yesterday, and there's still no word on the timing of when guidance will be released on the $20 billion plus BEAD non-deployment funding. At the FCC, there are a number of proceedings that we're working on, including we submitted comments last week on the 2026 Communication Marketplace Report, where that the FCC uses to inform Congress on the state of competition across the U.S. communications sector. Also, Lifeline NPRM, the FCC released a notice proposal rulemaking proposing that reforms the Lifeline program aimed at strengthening the program's integrity, reducing fraud and waste and abuse, and improving the eligibility of verification enrollment process. So reply comments are due on June 2nd. And also, the high cost program has an NPRM, and we'll be definitely involved in that. And then also the updated cover list. The FCC announced that routers produced in foreign countries will be added to the agency's covered list following a national security determination that compromised network equipment could pose cybersecurity and supply chain risk. So on Friday, May 8th, Commission extended the waiver on that covered list until January 1, 2029. So we are keeping a good eye on that. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, from the stage of Fiber Connect 2026, our guest was Josh Kim, the co-founder of Starfront Observatories, to discuss delivering the nighttime sky with fiber. Starfront is the world's largest collection of privately owned telescopes that scan the dark sky of rural Texas, and they'll soon have an observatory in Australia to cover the southern hemisphere, provide 24 hours of dark sky astronomy. That only happens with fiber. So if you missed last week's session, you can go to our website and watch the replay. Today on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest is our strategic research partner, Mike Render, principal at RVA, who will share with us latest consumer research on fiber's role in the disruptive era. AI, video proliferation, and counter-urbanization. Mike is a recognized expert in North American fiber broadband rollout and FBA's longtime research partner. RVA is a national and internationally known firm with 30-year history of service to a wide range of organizations and has recently expanded research into the growing fields of 5G, smart city technology deployment, and Mike's received numerous industry awards for his work in the broadband arena. So welcome, Mike, and for our audience, please type in your questions and we'll jump right into the research.
Great. Well, thanks, Gary, and congratulations on a great conference. So today we're going to talk about disruptive trends and what the influence is on fiber. And we've in the recent times we have seen more disruptions than we have seen probably in previous periods, particularly on the technology side. Transistors and microchips and fiber optic cable have all played a big role in technology in the last 50, 75 years. And of course, infrastructure changes. We've seen things like expressway systems and jet travel greatly increasing productivity, and of course the internet and fiber itself, fiber networks itself in that role. And then of course societal changes, urbanization, birth rate changes, and so forth. So many things are happening and have happened, and we want to see what the impacts are going forward. One thing that is clear is this start to a counter disruption from the urbanization that occurred from basically the founding of our country to about the COVID era. And you can see in the green that a rural area kept disappearing, the blue area, the urban area kept increasing, started to kind of level off, and then really more so during the COVID period. On the right, you can see the period right after, before COVID and right after. Rural counties were stagnant, lost a little bit in the red in total on the right side, based on Harvard studies. And you can see, on the other hand, the green in the last 5 years, there's more been net migration into those areas. There's still a big natural change because there's quite a few seniors in those areas that are basically passing on and so forth. But the net population was positive. And you can see from our study, we do a big consumer study every year for the FBA, have been since 2006. And from that, we ask questions that, for example, where do you live now? Asking people to describe, based on these categories, where they live now, and then where would they like to live. And as you can see, the numbers shown are the net change. Many people would like to move out of a city or a suburb and move into a more rural location, a small town, or even a very rural location. And I was talking to somebody about this at the conference, and somebody said, well, that's really true. My parents always lived in downtown, whatever it was, and they just bought, in their words, 10 acres and a goat. So, people are moving for many reasons. From our study, it seems to be certainly affordability, commute time, crime, and also, I think, just some desire in this age of technology to reconnect with nature to some extent. But when we look at the rural areas, we can see that, fiber is not in those areas as much. We really need to finish the job. This is based on FCC data, our data, kind of an average of all that. But you can see that rural areas still need more fiber. And the other thing to do, I was talking to someone else at the conference about the fact that in rural areas, people tend to use skinnier technologies, distributed split, distributed tap, using less fiber into those areas. But I think people need to plan for more density and have more fiber available as density increases somewhat in those areas. And of course, better middle mile. People are constrained. Rural ISPs are constrained by the cost of middle mile transport sometimes. So finding ways to increase that and keep the cost down to be able to give rural areas as much connectivity is certainly important. Multi-sensory communication, in its simplest form, it's video, but we'll be going beyond that. You can see from data from outside data from OpenVault that, for the download side, video represents as much as 92% of overall usage. But even on upstream, video is getting close to half, closer and closer, especially for people that are using fiber and a gigabit service. So it's really shown as being important. From our studies, from the FBA studies, you can see that every 5 years we show on the left the growth in streaming, two-way video, two-directional video uploads, people doing their own content and uploading it. AR, VR, still fairly small, but coming up. And on the horizon, things like tactile. You've got robots that'll have tactile sensors, and that could be transported to somebody with with a skin on of some kind, or other ways of doing that, scent. But all these multi-sensory things tend to take a lot of bandwidth, and so that's part of the need for fiber. Security camera use now up to 59% based on our survey, 3.4 cameras on average, 44% uploading to the cloud, more and more 4K and 8K televisions. So all that continues. So obviously, we need the best in terms of download speeds and upload speeds for the future. And it's for these sensors, and AI even plays into this. There was a recent announcement, Gary talked about a bit at the show, that some people are already looking at prototype tests of data centers on the side of a home. So you've got two directional data transfer back and forth, which fiber is, of course, completely necessary for those reasons. Artificial intelligence, we really tried to dig in our study a little deeper than some of the current consumer studies. Here's on the left, the Gallup study that shows several years back. The bottom two lines are weekly and daily use of AI. It's slowly been increasing, but we expect this trend will rapidly increase. On the right, you can see some plotting of other trends and how disruptions and how fast they were accepted by the public. So we certainly expect that with AI. In our study, we asked, do you use AI for search? Do you use it at all? 35% didn't use it. 33% used it for more complex uses. And of course, many use it for both work and home. In this study is a cross-tabulation slide. And this kind of slide, the gold ones here, you can see, you have to look at these differently. These don't add to 100. It's based on any of those categories, what percent are using more complex AI uses. So for example, 18 to 24, 50% of those people are using AI and using even complex versions of AI, and less so, of course, as the age goes up. So there's also a correlation with income, more use, higher income, more education. But all of these categories, based on further trends, will tend to even out over time. Obviously, a competition for AI, ChatGPT leaving, Gemini, Copilot, Grok, Claude. But with competition, that's good. A lot of new things are coming out of that. What many people do see the need for improvement, accuracy and reliability, hallucinations. I don't know how that word came into play. In some cases, I've seen it almost more look like true lying and even human-like cover-up. So, that is a problem that needs to be solved. People are concerned about certainly privacy and security. If you're using your own data and trying to create something out of it, is that data secure? Cost and accessibility, and of course, being less robotic and more personalized. Just the job and ethical concerns are on many people's minds, of course. Energy consumption, job loss. Well, what is this going to do to our employment situation? Speed, performance, and so forth. We ask what people are using AI for beyond just simpler search and, of course, augmented search. We've all seen now when we type in a search query, they'll many times give an AI type response, or you can ask for an AI response to get a deeper review of what the available data is and information is. So that's still, of course, used. And among this group that are using it for more complex uses, of course, everyone uses it for that reason, basically. But there are other things, decision-making, comparing two alternatives and getting AI to talk about and demonstrate and get data on the pluses and minuses of different decisions, or of course output assistance, writing, editing, organizing, taking something simple and showing a past format and saying, I want a white paper out of this, and that kind of thing. Image generation, both static and video, personal interaction. This one concerns me a little bit, that where some people are moving into using this even for conversation and therapy and so forth. And I can see some role there, but I hope that we keep a human impact role in that space primarily. Input assistance, categorizing, summarizing meetings. Probably people are doing this on this call. Business processes, of course, coding, accounting, inventory control, hypothesizing, modeling, running empirical analysis. So all these things have been useful. We asked people for the hours they spent doing things with AI, how many hours they estimate they would have spent without AI. And that showed a 36% productivity improvement. So, definitely an improvement. And of course, some people say they've seen even more than that. So definitely, there's evidence of productivity improvement here. In terms of attitudes by job, you can see here, we broke things down and tried to do it in a more creative way than many of the surveys, in terms of looking at asking people, what do they most commonly do on their job? Not, are they a doctor, or are they a plumber, or whatever. And so you can break these down by different categories, you can see on the left, and we've also kind of shown what these job taxonomies involve in terms of interpersonal. Are they creative skills? Are they just a process? Is it a mobile job? So interestingly, the people most concerned about losing their jobs are people that are doing online work with people, but it's online. So they're worried about bots and so forth taking over. In terms of the next category of concern is people that are doing very process-oriented things, coding, doing accounting work, et cetera, that could be taken over by AI. First response after that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get down to things that are more mobile, construction repair, and more varied, transportation, warehousing, and finally, the most interpersonal, people that are doing sales work or healthcare or hospitality, could be doctors, nurses. You've got many different spectrums of this, teachers, but they're currently the least concerned. And no one knows exactly how this is going to play out in the future, but you get theories from all one end of the spectrum that it's going to take every job there is, to no, it'll create as many jobs as it destroys, or perhaps even make more. So, and in addition, you can see people, even though if they have concerns about job loss, they also have some positives. They say, it's correct, it's helping my current job, or it will provide me future employment if I train correctly. So a lot of uncertainty there, but in the end, whatever the disruption is, it's obviously massive. Between AI and robotics, it's probably the most massive change society has ever faced. And along that, it'll certainly require the best broadband. So, many things to discuss here, Gary, but I think it's obvious that fiber, as you said in your comments at the show, and many other people say, is so foundational to society and to this disruption we're facing. So, Gary, with that, I'll leave you for any questions or comments.
There we go. Just trying to figure out where my mute button is. Mike, I really always appreciate your research, and it was great seeing you last week in Orlando. So in your latest research, any surprises, anything that you weren't expecting?
I have to think through that one. I can't think specifically. I think directionally there were things that I expected. I guess a few minor things. I didn't expect, for example, people that were interpersonal but online would have as much fear for job loss, for example. But thinking through that, it kind of makes sense with bots and so forth that they're seeing come online. Yeah,
what I thought was really interesting on a week ago Sunday, at, Alan Isfan had his AI workshop, and it was great. And then the questions at the end, people were almost angry. Like a college professor asked a question, and it was, I didn't realize how threatened people feel by AI.
Mm-hmm.
I've been all excited and kind of moving in a new era, but there are people that are very, very frightened. And I guess you're seeing that a little bit from your surveys. It's kind of a mixed bag of fear and opportunity. But it reminds me of the scene I was on the other day on the plane. I was trying to watch that movie, Hidden Figures, with NASA
Mm-hmm.
and the human computers, the ladies that were great at math. And then they had in the glass room across from all the ladies doing the computers
Mm-hmm.
was the IBM, right? And they're looking at this IBM, and then the IBM guys trying to get the IBM up and going. And the supervisor basically grabbed the Fortran book and said, well, we're either going to learn how to program or we're going to be looking for jobs. And so they used it as an opportunity. And I kind of feel like that's the moment that we're in, is that, the IBM's here or the AI is here. And so we got to jump on it and figure out. So speaking of that, how do you see AI changing broadband use? So, you mentioned, um, search. A lot of people just automatically, it's pretty easy to use Gemini or something like that for the search, but how is it going to really change fundamentally how we think about broadband?
Yeah, so I think a lot more data being changed into useful purposes easier. We've many people I've talked to have talked about using AI to create content, and they still have to look at it, check it, and refine it. But at this stage, is a good first start. But I think it also plays into that multi-sensory part. The way it will impact broadband initially, I think, is how simple it is now to create a 30-minute video that would have taken hundreds or millions of dollars to do. And that amount of data that's being transferred back and forth is very large. So that, and as we get to robotics, and you can think of doctors using robotics and having tactile needs and visual and high definition, all these things. It all fits together, and it's not just words or numbers that are easy to transmit into classical code and transmit. It's many pixels, if you will, being transferred all at once. So.
Well, that was the thing that surprised me, is on slide 19, you said 36% productivity gain with AI. That seems incredibly low. My neighbor wants to start a bakery, and I said, let's work on a business plan. So in 5 minutes, I had a whole completed business plan that was, using Gemini and Chat GPT, and I could get the whole, total addressable market in a nanosecond, and have a 5-year performer just, created a spreadsheet with, it literally 5 minutes, everything that would have taken days to do. The other thing is, Alan at this workshop showed us, trained us on how to build our own AI agents. And he has an agent, he builds, he gives them credit cards and has them book his travel, and, looked at the best fares and best days, and, scouring for deals. And so do you anticipate that everybody will have tons and tons of agents always running in the background? Is that going to generate a significant amount of traffic?
I assume so. And I think it'll take the average person longer to figure that out and start doing that. But yes, that's a constant, more 24-hour kind of thing. And yes, certainly productivity. I've heard people talk about, I guess, 200% productivity improvement or whatever. So certainly many cases, but the unknown also is at what stage this becomes, the quality reaches the ready for production stage. I've got a daughter that's an AI product manager, and she and another son-in-law who work in AI, using AI for another purposes for pricing for big box stores and things, say that the coding part is very helpful for proving concepts and so forth, for example, but it still takes a lot of time to really make sure that fits into the overall software and there's no quality issues and so forth. So at this point, some of the immediate productivity, yes, you can create an example of a project that you conceptualize very quickly, but there's still some human element involved in making that the last 10% ready for use. Now, will that change? You know, it's really hard to visualize all this fits together. That could even become more productive over time.
Well, you know, so I got some good questions that came in from the audience. So what's your view on AR, VR? Is that going to, I mean, obviously that's going to be a big consumer bandwidth and really favoring fiber. But when do you see that really taking off for like training, entertainment, education?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's been disappointing to some so far in that it hasn't taken off more for entertainment purposes and so forth. But certainly there's training aspects that are very valuable and will be taken up over time. I don't know exactly the trajectory. Sometimes it takes, you know, just some killer application that comes out that no one has thought about that really raises that ramp rate much faster.
And, you know, one of your colleagues was also talking about sensitivity analysis. You can do much faster with AI. And, you know, when operators are looking at deploying new services. So I do think, I can't imagine AI not being a huge part of everybody's life on everything they do. I mean, matter of fact, I just put a boat for sale and I just put in Gemini on how I should price it. And they gave me a full analysis of, you know, they looked at every boat the same that's in the area and came up with a price and tell me not to underprice it because someone will think something's wrong with it. And
Yeah.
you know, so it gives you a lot of data, does, and it's getting better and better and better every minute. But
Right. Yeah.
So Mike, what's next? You know, so how do you, is there anything from your study that you think that you need to put into your next study?
Well, of course, many people expect human robotics to start hitting the streets in a more robust way fairly soon. And that obviously will come into play. But certainly continuing to follow AI, in addition to everything we have done with this study through the years. You know, we've watched, you know, the internet itself progress and video and things that, you know, that Fiber Broadband Association always seems to be ahead of the curve in looking at some of these disruptions and how they are related to broadband. So we do want to continue to track this and robotics and all the outflows of AI that will come forward, agentic AI, as you mentioned, and so forth. So many.
Yeah, I mean, building an agent is so easy because you let your AI build your agent for you. You just tell it what it needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can see very soon in my future, I will have a gazillion agents going for every possible thing I can delegate. But Mike, I really appreciate you sharing your research and your expertise with us today. And I want to thank everybody for getting together. I look forward to getting back together next Wednesday. Our guest will be Jeff Hainan, the Vice President of Broadband Access and Networking for Delaware Group. And he's going to discuss his latest research on broadband access and home networking forecasts. So he's definitely going to be telling us how AI is going to impact capacity needs and demands. So we'll look forward to that. And Mike, again, always great. It was great seeing you, and give our best to Kathy.
Will do. Thank you.